this morning, troubles on my mind. Bills piling up, feels like I'm falling behind. Worked hard all week, but the money's all gone. Can't catch a break, feeling like I don't belong. But I can't wait to get home and listen to the History Homos podcast. That's right, the History Homos podcast. Hey, homos, don't worry, man. Struggling to make it, but I'm gonna get home and listen to the History Homos podcast. Got mouths to feed and a roof that leaks. I'm a blue-collar man, I drive a truck, but I won't give in, won't let life bring me down. Gonna keep on listening till I turn it all around. But I can't wait to get home and listen to the History Homos podcast. That's right, the History Homos podcast. Hey, homos, don't worry, man. Struggling to make it, but I'm...
And we're live. Welcome back. This week, my erstwhile companion, William. Welcome back, William. And, of course, joining us again, the wonderful radio superstar, Monica Perez.
Yay!
I think that's getting old. Thank you, guys. Hi.
Yeah, give
What
us
have I
like a
done
nice...
lately?
Give us a nice, like, lordly, because we are talking about royals a lot in this episode, by the way. But so William, you put us onto this this series of books.
Yeah, I think Monica, did you? I think Monica might have put me onto it originally back years and years ago.
Very possible.
Because the first one, which is I can never remember the names of the authors.
Yeah, The Secret Origins of the First World War. Hidden History, The Secret Origins of the First World War.
By Docherty and MacGregor.
Yes.
And its follow-up, Prolonging the Agony, this tells you how long ago I read Prolonging the first one, the Hidden History one, because I just was looking at Amazon the other day, and I bought, after I'd read Hidden History, I bought Prolonging the Agony, and I just didn't read it. And I looked on Amazon. I bought that in 2021.
Wow.
Been on your nightstand for 4 years. The subtitle is How the Anglo-American Establishment Deliberately Extended World War I by 3.5 years.
Yeah. And it's as far as I'm concerned, these books make a case and prove it.
Yeah.
Certainly,
it's very well
sourced.
sourced. Yeah. It's kind of almost a book you want to give to a normie relative to be like, all right, you ready? Like, and also I'll say this is that in the last 3 chapters of the second book, it got very based.
Yeah.
I knew I didn't quite finish the book, and last night I was like, let me just read through the last chapter. It's like, oh, Scott's gonna be all over this shit. I gotta at least read the little summary in the last chapters. But so that's 2 things I like to say. Summaries at the bottom of each chapter, and also he does something that you kind of sometimes don't like, but sometimes do like, is he says, therefore, they're scumbag pieces of shit who, obviously there was a conspiracy, like he will connect the dots, but he has the chops to do it.
Sure.
Yeah, they're really good. The way that the design of these books is, because it's such almost, the material is designed, the actual historical facts are designed to be impenetrable.
Correct.
Basically, so starting off with because I've been banging on about the first book for years, but we've never actually covered it on the show. And really, the case that makes is that it's working from the original research of Carroll Quigley, and then they've gone into it, because he's kind of revealed the personalities at the core of it, and these guys have researched in detail with evidence the mechanics of how this global coup was taken over. It was an imperial coup to start with. So you start off with the British in South Africa, and they've really just got, like Cape Town was really just a coaling station and provisioning station for British ships before the Suez Canal. Mm-hmm. And the Dutch had the rest of it. well, it wasn't the Dutch. It was the
It
Boers.
was the Boers, yeah.
Yeah, but how they got there was before it was a British coaling station. It was a
Dutch farming colony.
It was a Dutch same thing, but not coal. Just when there were sailing ships,
right?
And but the first people to get there were Portuguese. But anyway, we're not talking about South Africa. And so the British put this governor in there, and they were running it not really as an extractive colony, but then then gold got found, and that was bad news for the Dutch.
Yeah.
It
was so over for them, basically.
Yeah.
And then they went on the Voor Trekka.
Yeah.
And then they said, we're so back.
Yeah.
And then they found diamonds there.
Oh, snap.
And they said, it's so over again.
But yeah, so the official British government policy and the direct orders from Queen Victoria were that she didn't want any wars in South Africa. It was fine as it was, leave it alone. But they had this gold interest of Rothschilds-backed Cecil Rhodes, who cornered the entire global diamond market from South Africa and had massive gold mining interests. And he had this. I think he'd been to a Masonic function at Oxford University in the late 90s, very end of the 1896, I want to say, something like that. And he's saying, we do all this fanning around, rolling a trouser leg up and all that, but we don't really accomplish anything. Why don't we have a society that's the same as that, but that actually does things? Because what we are the Ruskinite master race of English. The idea that English is a master race is hilarious. And they were going to build a railway from the Cape to Cairo, and the entire world, the entire habitable portions of the world were going to come under the government of the British Empire. That was the idea. And the provocation of World War One was a means to that end, because Germany had outstripped these. I mean, like, these are you're onto normie history now. Germany was outstripping British.
They were kind of crushing
technology. Yeah, they were becoming a threat to global trade. So a load of propaganda was whipped up because it's such a massive. This Milnerite. So Milner was the governor of South Africa,
right?
And then he became
Cecil Rhodes' butt buddy.
Yeah, but after Rhodes' death, because the war happened,
he became
Rhodes' he was the brains.
They call that the paterfamilia.
Yeah, and he kept getting offered loads of high-powered jobs after he'd retired from his South Africa gig, but he wouldn't take them because he was busy doing this.
Yeah.
And
I think he wanted to keep a low profile too, for what it's worth.
Yeah, and he had the entire British Foreign Office under control. So they spent years after Queen Victoria died in 2002, maybe.
Right. Well, that's a key thing, because Queen Victoria loved her little nephew, or grandson rather, who was the Kaiser Wilhelm, of course. So she would never hear of any sort of discord between the countries, I suppose. So they had to do this completely in the shadows while she was alive. And then once Mr. fucking Drinky Poo, the king, comes along, shows up, it's like game on.
Yeah, Edward VII. See, they'd been working on him, just like how Prince Charles has been waffling on about climate change and shit. Yeah. Ever since he was sort of a kid of 30.
Ever since the first time he was caught with his hand in the cookie jar.
Yeah. That's just a rerun of what they did with Edward VII.
Sure.
So they used Edward VII.
He likes to party.
Diplomacy, like to lull the Italians and to lull everybody into a false sense of security, to fool the Russians into thinking that they could trust the British, and all this kind, because he would issue assurances of, oh no, we're not going to do that. I've said that. In fact, they did the review of the fleet at Spithead in 1914, I think it was, and they had the German, either the Kaiser or some German high up baron or something was there, as the personal guest of King Edward VII, and numerous assurances given. But that whole Spithead review was just to mobilize the navy because they knew the war was about to start. But basically, the long story short, Britain, not the British government, to start
the Milner Group.
Yeah, but the British government was in complete ignorance of this, but they had
I don't know about complete ignorance, but they were.
But the actual cabinet and parliament certainly was ignorant.
Sure.
Parliament was repeatedly lied to, and but also they owned the media. They had W.T. Stead in the Times, and even W.T. Stead did a bit of a a bit of a Carroll Quigley job and said, this is fucking wrong. I'm not doing this anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he quit. Yeah.
But
then he went to America and did the same shit, though. I mean, wasn't he the guy who they were trying to kill at the New York Times office when they had the draft riots in New York City?
I know he was over there preaching in favor of prohibition.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. No, I'm mixing the things up. That's what he was there for. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
But so
very Calvinist.
Yeah, these guys provoked Germany time and time again, and they built this entente cordiale with France.
Well, I was just going to say one of the big things they did. Well, to that end, they the thing that they did was they cultivated like shifty characters within like each country. Like in France, they had this Poincaré guy.
Poincaré,
yeah. And
there's still a street in every town in France called Avenue Raymond Poincaré.
No shit. But he was a group of this revanchist group who are they're retarded. Like I don't understand where they get this notion of like we deserve. You know what I mean?
Revenge because the Germans kicked Napoleon out.
Yeah. But you do get the name, your guy's name for German Shepherd dogs in England from this what do you call it? Historical fact.
Alsatians.
Yeah. So there's these revanchist group of they're like a minority, but a like large minority of the government, and through the machinations of funding through the Rothschilds and stuff. Who, by the way,
wait a minute, we missed out some other key. They also had the I think it was called Sazonov, the Russian.
I was gonna get to him
foreign
next,
minister. Was also a secret. In the book, they call these Milner guys a secret elite. Mm-hmm. So he was also a secret elite agent. And they, over time, they did get control of the cabinet because they had compromised politicians in
the UK.
They decided who was going to be in the cabinet.
Mm-hmm. It was literally all them. They were literally the entire cabinet was all Milner guys.
Yeah, by the time the war started, but when they were building it up, they were doing it under the radar. Like there were questions in Parliament: does the United Kingdom have any security arrangements with foreign countries that we haven't been told about? No, but they did. They had them with. Well, they knew about the one with France, but they also had them with Russia and Italy, and also the this Sazonov guy was involved with running agents in. So they say, the Russians were running these agents in Serbia, right? But that was Sazonov's doing.
Yeah.
Right, and Sazonov was a British agent.
And so they started the Black Hand, which was literally just like a glowy, like glow off, just like today. Yeah, it's literally just another one. Like it's just like Adam Waffen or literally.
And all this stuff that's happening today, it's nothing new. Like even like the domination of the media, because I like literature from this era.
Sure, yeah.
Right, and so
all those books, right? Yeah,
all these books about German spies and stuff. We're just. It's kind of like TV shows about gay rights. It's just like it's the thing that's being pushed down people's throats.
Right.
So when the war did break out, people were like all full of this. Well, I've read this book where the Germans are bad. The newspapers.
This makes perfect sense.
It's been going on for. They were trying to get this going for almost. I mean, more than 10 years, but like really actively, like 8 years.
Yeah,
So they had all
provocations
that
in
time.
Africa and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, to try and because like they didn't like the fact that Germany had any colonial possessions. But I mean, the whole thing in the second book, the bit about them assassinating Kitchener, because
That was
Gosh.
crazy.
I know my heart was breaking because I thought he was a jerk because I have a quote from him, I think from the first book saying, I hate the people. Like I hate
Well, I
the
think he was a
plebs.
jerk, but he
Yeah,
wasn't
but
stupid.
he was a few times. Nobody. I think he was like he wouldn't go for the provocations. He wouldn't participate in the South
He wanted
Africa
a
stuff.
just peace. That's why they killed him.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
But the way they killed him, like that was crazy. How many people must have been in on that, and how brutal, and how many other people they killed.
Yeah, it's insane. So yeah, but you probably aren't as aware of this as I am, but Kitchener is the one figure from that era who it's okay to vilify
Oh, really?
in
Yeah.
normie English circles. Yeah, if you know, people know a little bit about it. So yeah, Kitchener was because it was his face on the propaganda posters.
Sure.
Your country needs you.
Even my son thought he was a jerk. I was like, hey, this Kitchener guy, like, I didn't realize he wanted a good piece. It's like, oh, he was an asshole. Like, how would you even think that? You know?
Well, he was a very rude and horrible man, apparently.
Yeah,
but
he was a snob. He was for sure a snob.
But he was the reason the elites didn't like him was because he's like a soldier, meaning he has a logistical mind, and ergo. When like specifically the book brings this up, by the way, is during the Boer War, he was famously the head guy for the British forces, and he was like, all right, let's just give some treaty to Krugman, like Paul Kruger, whatever, it's fine, let's leave. Like, why are we still fighting these guys? We're getting our asses kicked. We have to put people into concentration camps. This doesn't seem efficient.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with yeah, it's exactly the same thing as what happened in World War One, where he thought, well, this is a military campaign. We've achieved the objectives. Now we need to make it work afterwards. We need to. He understood that you've got to bring a close to it, but that's not the agenda of the secret elite. The secret elite agenda is perpetual war, and here we are.
Well, and totally crushing Germany.
Both,
yeah, which isn't. I mean, that wouldn't be a just goal.
No.
But it's so weird how
and the French get blamed for that, but it's really these secret British.
Right.
It's not like the French were in a really strong position to dictate things after World War One. It was just that these guys, and they kind of outmaneuvered Woodrow Wilson because he kind of wanted a just peace as well, allegedly.
Yep, that's what he said.
Allegedly, yeah.
I know, but it was amazing to me how staunchly the Kaiser resisted all of these provocations, just all along the way. And then in the end, maybe there's something, I mean, maybe it's just crystal clear. It was such a weird detailed Versailles Treaty to say Germany has to say it was entirely its fault.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty Talmudic.
It's the opposite. Yeah. Oh, is it?
I guess it seems that way. Yeah. Like,
well, I mean, so the facts of that were that with British and French connivance, the Russians started mobilizing like 2 months before the outbreak of war, and mobilization is an act of war. So
it's an act of war.
Technically, Russia started the war, not Germany, and they were amassing troops on the German border, and so Germany had to respond.
Right,
and that's what they did.
But
why
the thing is,
Russia mobilized because they were like Britain told them to. There was a reason.
Literally,
they did
yeah.
it.
Sazonov was behind that primarily, and he was the English agent in the Russian Empire.
But yeah, the Russians wanted Constantinople.
Yeah, warm water port. They still use this term, by the way.
Yeah,
warm water port.
This was their motivate. That was how they sold it to the Tsar anyway, because that was like a long term.
Well, they got rid of him
Russian
too.
Name,
And then in the end, they didn't give him the ammo and stuff that they promised they would give him, so he could do that.
They gave it to the Germans instead. It's crazy.
That second one, that Herbert Hoover stuff. We'll get to that.
Well, we'll get to that. Yeah. So the thing I wanted to say was, Yeah, to your point, Monica, like the Kaiser withholding his wrath over and over and over again is crazy, to the point where they realize, oh, we literally can't get to Germany. We have to get to Germany through Austria-Hungary.
Yeah.
We have to get them involved, and then Germany will go to the bat for them. So therefore, we'll get the war going. And that's they must have been getting frustrated because I guess Kaiser Wilhelm was just all about family. The family.
But and they're still like, well, yeah, German militarism is what caused it.
Yeah, okay.
But it's the opposite. That's the opposite of the fact. And they did this with this propaganda mind virus through all forms of media. And like I've got a personal example of this. My favorite author, P.G. Wodehouse, great English humorist, in like the very early 20th century, maybe 1902 or something. Even he was writing this anti-German propaganda. I think he only wrote one bit of it, but it was like when they had all these spy novels and stuff out, because he's like just starting out. He's just starting out as an author. You're going to write what's going to get printed.
Right.
He wrote this absolute piece of shit called The Swoop, which is a German spy novel. I mean, at least he tries to make it funny.
What was I just going to say about so William, you remember very, very early on in the podcast, like in 2020 still, we both watched the movie 1914 and talked about it on the show. And I had said, look at what they're doing here. I mean, there's a scene specifically where a German plane crashes. By the way, what fucking battle is this? Is this happening? But German like fighter plane crashes, and these two English guys help this German soldier out of the wreckage and save his life. And then they're just chilling, and all of a sudden the German soldier wakes up and just starts brutally stabbing the guy who just saved him to death.
Yeah, bullshit.
And it's like, dude, I'm like, this is it. This is propaganda. This is such blatant propaganda. Like, especially given after I've learned just how it's not the case that German militarism was the cause of World War I. Like, it's amazing that they are still pushing this meme. Again, that movie came out in like 2019.
Yeah.
Right. Well, because World War II rests on the same premise, but they conjured Hitler, like they cultivated that in the wreckage, in the aftermath.
Same director as American Beauty, by the way. So the guy has a long track record.
It was very cool, though, that it was like a single shot. That movie was a single shot. That was pretty amazing.
Well, I'll not just an actually here, but they did fake it being one shot, but they faked it immensely well.
Okay, well, it's less cool if it was faked.
Yeah, well, they did something where like
cool.
Where they like
they made it look like that. All right, well, forget it.
I mean, they took the camera like in front of like a pillar or something, and when they go over the pillar, they cut, and then they go, "Okay, let's go."
No, I don't care about that. Forget it. No,
sorry
to
blow the. No,
that's fine. I didn't want to like it.
Yeah,
I thought it was kind of cool, but for the reason you did too, by the way.
It was cool, but forget it.
But what was I gonna say? So so the war. So the couple of the things I want to talk about. The Russo-Japanese War, of course.
Oh, of course, the first official military alliance that Britain ever got into. Now, why? Out of the fucking blue, Britain said, "Well, we've never had any military alliances before. Let's have one. Who should we choose? Japan." Obviously,
they wanted to sell them ships, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but also they wanted to destroy the Russian Navy so that they could get a secret alliance with Russia, and Russia would be dependent on the Royal Navy support. For its support. That's why. And
talk about 5D chess, by the way.
Yeah, because what year was that? See, that's the thing. It was you have to really get ahead.
1906,
early 20th.
Yeah.
And you had Jacob Schiff's underwriting Russia couldn't get any loans, and
I wonder why they're mean to the people who usually give them out.
Japan got backed by New York banks, and the
Chief-kun Loeb specifically.
Not Peter. What's his name? Jacob Schiff.
Jacob Schiff. Yeah, I get it mixed up all the time.
Personally oversaw the production of communist propaganda pamphlets for distribution to Russian prisoners of war in Japanese prison camps, which is from another book that we recently reviewed, Money Kings.
Monica, you got to read Money Kings
Oh,
by
really?
Daniel Schulman, I think. But a very good book, and it's all about the Shifkun Lobes. What do you call it?
Warburg?
The Warburg, yeah, but that's part of
Yeah.
the same org. But
Right.
yeah, and but also what's the other one? The brothers, the one that's still going on. Goldman Sachs, and then also
Not Brown Brothers.
no, it's a maybe
I'm-
Bronstein brothers, if anything. No, it's all specifically Jewish German banks. So it was what's the other
Lehman
bank?
Brothers?
Lehman Brothers, thank you. Yeah, and it's very interesting, and it also shows, and it like proudly, amazing thing about that book is like how it proudly goes, Jacob Schiff was a man of principle. That's why he distributed communist propaganda to the Russian prisoners of war at the Japanese internment camp that they funded.
So
and of course the same thing. So that's like it's. I do think Scott sort of put this angle into my mind that this. So I think I think the prime mover in that Russo-Japanese thing is obviously the British secret elite.
Yes.
And then they use okay, so we know that this Schiff guy hates Russia and wants to promote revolution in it. So we can get the money for this op we're doing by letting him do what he wants to do as well.
Because in that same book, that we're talking about, the Money Kings, it goes at length to talk about how for a long time during World War I, the Schiff Kuhnlob contingency and the Warburgs were pro-German the whole war, or not the whole war, the first half of the war or so. And it was a kind of a point of contention because like the Schiff guy is like boys with like all of the American executive branch, and giving them loans, by the way. And also he is funding, he's giving money like literally to the German government during the war, first half of the war, while the Americans weren't a part of the war yet. And like, in the press, the American press wasn't completely subsumed yet. So a lot of them are going like, hey, look at these Jewish bankers in New York. They're backing the Germans. Keep your eyes on these guys or whatever. And but then the way this book sort of frames it is that they were sort of with the team the whole time, with the secret elite the whole time. But I don't see anything wrong with it being both. Because the thing is I could easily see like the Rothschilds were married into the Schiff family at this point through the Warburgs, by the way. But I would say that it's very easy for me to see like the Rothschilds and the Milner guys sort of outflanking the Schiff Kuhnlob guys and being like, oh, we'll get them to give money to the Germans, so it just looks like they're shifty Jews who are giving money to both sides, and then actually we'll be giving them money to keep this war going.
So the great example that illustrates that and sold this idea to me was you've got the naval blockade of Germany during the early part of World War One was totally ineffective because the Navy, which was run by Churchill, who was a secret elite guy,
big time,
decided not to do a close blockade of the Baltic coast of Germany, which would have been effective.
Yeah.
Rather than do that, they patrolled the North Atlantic, so ships going around to the north of Scotland to get to the Baltic from America, which is that's like trying to stop somebody getting in from breaking into your house by going and standing at the bus stop and waiting for them to get off the bus. But the sailors managed to do a pretty good job of it, and they would, as per the naval rules of engagement, they board the ships, decide to condemn them, and they would send them into port to be judged. So you go to you get sent to a naval court, and the Foreign Office took over the administration of the court system from the Navy and just didn't condemn anything. They just sent them on to Germany or whatever neutral port they were going to,
Right.
with stuff
Oslo,
that was
often,
deemed bound for Germany. Yeah. And so that they didn't stop anything getting in at all, and it was on purpose, is the point. But it wasn't until after the war that they initiated an effective campaign, because then they wanted to starve
the innocent people after they capitulated.
Yeah, so rather than Germany just running out of food in 1915 and going,
"Oh, we lost. Sorry."
Right. Okay. We're sorry. We've still got a military. We've still got a society. We're sorry. Let's negotiate. We're still in a decent negotiating position. Let's negotiate a just peace. Nah, they had to keep food and arms flowing to Germany during the war, and it wasn't until the Americans came in that they decided that right, okay, now we're going to crush them.
Right.
But long before the Americans came in, Herbert Hoover was the one who was getting all that food in there. But what at the very end of the second book, when it talks about how there was, they talked about all this mass starvation in Belgium, so they had to keep sending food into Belgium, sending food, and it went to Germany to keep the war going.
Yeah.
But at the end, when it says after that, they really did starve the Germans like that. You know, that was a tell to me that that had to have been true, that they were sending them food.
Yeah.
Germany must perish. Well, that's after World War II, but same plan basically. Germany must perish.
Well, I mean, like having read this book probably back in 2020 or something, the first one. I think, I mean, it's profoundly changed my understanding of subsequent events after I read it. So, like, look at what's happened to Germany with this Ukraine war. Because I mean, very early on in the Ukraine war, I said, "Oh, this is World War One Part 2. This is World War One again." Right? And not just because it's trench warfare and all that shit, because it's for the same reason. And isn't it an odd coincidence that all 3 world wars have had the effect of destroying German industry?
Yeah.
Makes you think.
Even though it's Turks losing their jobs this time.
And they had to get rid of Angela Merkel, whatever you might think of her.
Yeah.
But she was Eastern German. That's why I kept thinking, like, why does she wouldn't let them like she kept buying gas from Russia and stuff. They had to get rid of her, and I feel like it was her.
She did that, yeah, but she also did come out, I think, in 2022 and said, because she was one of the brokers, it was her, it wasn't Nicola, it was Françoise Hollande and Angela Merkel. Like chaired the Minsk talks.
Right.
Because that's another thing. Like, I mean, we're now talking 2014. That's 100 years later, and because that's when the Ukraine war started. Was
of course,
2014. Yeah,
it was all over that.
Yeah, the CIA did a coup.
Vicky the Noodle.
Prominently Russian industrial areas in the east didn't like it. So
they banned the Russian language, and those people spoke Russian. You can't do that.
But they had that like, so the coup, the nationalist coup forces were going and taking over. You know, they're taking over Kiev. They're going around taking over country count. These guys just formed militias and set up roadblocks and stopped that from happening in their area, right? And so
but they're racist.
Yeah, but the new. Well, they're all racist.
But these ones matters because they're not doing what NATO wants them to.
The regular Ukrainian army would not kill those guys. So that's when they started the Azov battalion, which were racist. And they were the ones who killed the guys from the east. But anyway, God.
But yeah, so they like all this, that when Malaysian Airways thing, it's the Russians did it. But like these areas that were just defending them, they're defending their existing. You know, it's a small country fighting against a big country. Yeah, these guys, they were just like, oh no, we don't want this Ukrainian nationalism in our area. We want.
It's gay.
We want like a federal Ukraine, so that our area can still have some degree of autonomy. That was all they wanted. If we're going to have, present with a fait accompli of this illegal government that they've got, in Kiev, and so
And that's what Putin wanted. Putin
Yeah.
did not want to go in there.
no, and again, it was a bit like Kaiser Wilhelm, from 14 till now.
Yeah,
But anyway,
I remember we said this a lot during 2020 to 2022. It seems like Putin's doing everything he can to not do this. We were saying that the whole time, and then finally it just became too much.
Well, they had a meeting and they said we're bringing Georgia into NATO and other stuff like that. Yeah. They had to keep pushing it. And there's a 2019 document in the Rand Corporation that says like we'll try to get Belarus to do this, and if not, we'll just use it as a provocation to get Russia mired in this thing. So yeah, they definitely kept pushing just like this.
Yeah, and all this to say, so 2014. This kicked off, and the Ukrainians were just bombarding the Donbass with artillery. That because Russia has a strategic naval base at Sevastopol, they just broke out of the naval base and secured Crimea and says, right, okay, you're not coming here. But the Crimean, before that happened, the Crimean citizens put up a militia which stopped the nationalists from getting in largely, although they did get in and burnt the town hall down with a load of people in it.
They had a referendum too that was almost unanimous to join Russia. But so the Minsk Accords, right? So I'm not saying Merkel is a good person. I'm just saying I understand why she wouldn't just outright do the stupid shit that Olaf Scholz did.
Yeah, so they had this Minsk agreement, which was that Russia agreed that okay, all this can remain part of Ukraine. That's fine, but you can't be banning the religion and the language and stuff. And that's the agreement. Okay, but the Ukrainians there's never been a day since 2014 where they haven't shelled the Donbass. Even the day after the Minsk agreements were signed, they still carried on doing it. And in 2022, Merkel and Hollande both said, when it looked like that Ukraine was winning, they said, "Oh well, we knew at the time that the Minsk agreements were just a delaying tactic to allow us to arm Ukraine so it could win."
And Victoria Nuland said that.
Yeah,
Vicky the Noodle. But Merkel said that.
Merkel and Hollande
both
said it.
Yeah.
So there comes a point where there's no point in negotiating with people. And that point is when they say that last time they negotiated with you, they were lying to you to fool you.
Yeah. Well, Monica, you just brought that plebiscite up, the Crimean plebiscite, for the referendum or whatever. But I one time I was talking to this guy I know who hates Putin. He's literally you go over his house and he's got PBS NewsHour on and he's got an interview about why Putin's bad.
The liberals who want to start World War III.
literally, yeah. But he goes to me one time. He goes, I go, well, they took a plebiscite and it was 99.9%
with 99% turnout. He goes,
yeah. That's because all the people who supported Ukraine had to run from their homes. They left because they were afraid of reprisals against these thugs from the Russian thugs who would kill them because they support their president in Ukraine.
So now everyone in Crimea is pro-Russian because everybody who wasn't left. So either way.
So I know that's what I'm saying. Isn't that immaterial then? Right. He goes, well, that's not a good sample size of what
they weren't allowed to. They were effectively disenfranchised.
I mean, you're leaning on.
They spoke Russian.
An open door with us, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that guy, cool guy. Anyway. What's I gonna say is okay,
why do people care? Why does that guy fucking care?
I think
why does that guy want us to
he was trying to talk
money?
to a Ukrainian girl. This probably had something to do with it.
I've noticed that there are some female. I noticed at a libertarian conference I was at. I was like, Ukrainian. What are these Ukrainian chicks doing here?
Yeah. Early life also. But anyway, what was I gonna say? So we got the Russo-Japanese. So Sazonov was in, by the way, and then he was also was he part of the Russo-Japanese War, or was he after that?
I can't remember.
It doesn't matter. It kind of doesn't matter. Yeah, but the
he's
point
talked about after. But
yeah. So I was gonna say, well, that's for sure. But I was gonna say is so they put them in a position where they have no navy. And by the way, they souped up the Japanese navy. By the way,
Yeah, they
and
had the most
kicked their
advanced ships in
asses.
the world.
Yeah. Literally the best. The British Navy. Basically, they had their own British Navy piloted by Japanese. And if you put a Japanese guy in any position that a white guy used to work, he can do the job.
Till it's done or
Hey,
die.
but they've got
or die trying.
there's a Japanese driver at our work now.
Hell yes, dude.
and you're getting laid off.
I can't believe it.
No, he probably makes more than William.
There isn't too much Japanese immigration though. Chinese, yeah, but like
Yeah, because the
why would
country
you
they
leave?
come from isn't a hellhole.
Yeah, I was
know.
gonna say, why would you leave? But what was I gonna say? So it's actually really funny too. Like it was a major part. And this is just another side thing. The book didn't cover it all, but this was a major part of the sort of national myth that they were building in Japan at the time. Was that they were like, look, we kicked the Russians' ass, we kicked Europeans' asses, and the Chinese have just been bitches to the Europeans for centuries, and we just stomped them. So therefore, we're obviously God's gift to Asia, which is what put them in the sort of national mindset where they would then go invade China, by the way, in the next 10, 15 years. But that's another conversation.
that's kind of crazy. Yeah.
But what was I going to say is, so the revanchists in France, you got Sazonov, and then the Russians are now reliant on the British Navy, and so therefore they'll basically do whatever they want. And and then we also said they have the gay op going on in Serbia, where this guy Apis is like this absolute spook. Like he's literally like some kind of like spurned war hero. Didn't they do a coup or something, and they put his party in charge of Serbia?
Regicide.
Regicide. That's right. Yeah. So this spook basically, he's like a scorned like war hero and then they're like he got like passed over. He got passed over as far as like being some guy in the military or some guy in the government or whatever. And so there's a Rothschilds backed like cult, like basically a cult terrorist group called the Black Hand, and it's got this charismatic military guy, sort of like Poincaré, in charge of that. And then they kill the king, and they put in a new guy who's like a baron or something, who's sympathetic to the Serbian nationalist cause. And there we go. We're off to the races. We're gonna kill Archduke Ferdinand.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they supplied the weapons and
everything.
The whole thing was a secret elite op done through Russia. It's done through Russia on purpose, so that then after the war, I mean, like, look what happened.
Look at these crazy Russians.
What happened to Russia? Never entered into alliance with the United States or the United Kingdom, because look what happened to Russia and Italy after World War One.
Yeah,
who were both on Britain's side. Yeah, I mean, like,
I think about that with World War II too. Like Germany and Japan they're
if
you
bitches.
go there, they're pretty nice. What?
Yeah,
there are bitches now.
I know, but I don't know, like visiting there, it's nice.
Yeah,
is Germany? I've never been. I don't know much about it. I should say. I know. I've never been to
West
Japan
Germany.
either.
I'm just saying these are prosperous places that rebuilt pretty quickly, and I mean, maybe it's bad to think that, but it just seems. I mean, yes, they're bitches and they lost their culture and everything.
Yeah.
But they're not Yemen.
I would say that's a fairly definitely not Yemen. But I was going to say that the reason being, I would say, is because the last time they kicked Germany's ass and then took everything away from them, look what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they wanted that.
They were like, let's make
happen
sure that
anyway.
doesn't happen again.
There's also the idea, which I noticed. I was stuck in South Korea for a day. Whatever, it was weird, but
sounds cool.
It would have
You're in
been,
the
but it was
future
in
for
the
a
airport. It was in the airport for 24 hours. I had a problem with. I was trying to go to Vietnam, which was very cool. Anyway, so I got stuck there for a day. But I noticed with them and places in Germany and also Japan, when you completely wipe a place out, like Altadena or Gaza or whatever, it all gets built up again at the same time, and it's kind of the newest place on Earth.
True.
because it's, just wiped. So it could just be that.
Beachfront property, yeah. Riverfront property in West Bank.
I've been saying that they were teeing it up for Disney since the beginning.
I mean, I think war is bad.
Yeah, me too, dude. Walt Disney is spinning in his grave if that happens.
Well, it's happening.
I know.
And people listen to what Trump has to say, and I think of you. It's like, yeah, but that's why he's there.
Yeah.
Trump, all of a sudden decided to make this, kick everybody out. It's like, that's why he got elected. That's how you
that's why they ushered him in gently into office.
Yeah, everyone would know.
And it's everybody shut up moaning about it now. They're just like, okay, this is a new thing because orders have come down from up above.
Yeah, what are you blackpilling, dude?
When are they going to launch the...
This time he's not Hitler.
The protests from the left. At some point here, they're going to unleash Palestinian protests so that we have domestic problems a la Vietnam.
Yeah.
I think.
What happened?
Not yet. Not in time to stop it.
Trump Mark 1, you had Antifa and BLM and all that shit. Where's that now?
They're waiting until it's too
inconvenient.
Late. Yeah. Because
they'll be here.
This time he's approved. They're agents of the regime. And
William, Black Lives Matter and Antifa's gone and you're blackpilling right now? Grow up. It's 5D chess, dude. Just trust the plan.
I'm not going to. I'm resisting the urge to go off on that tangent. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Let's try to stick to the material.
I think the point with this is that it is just a playbook, and we think, what happened in 2020 was like something new. It's not. It's exactly what happened, except it was German spies instead of germs. Yeah. Even begins with germ.
Yes.
And that's how this is something that's very telling. This was 100 years ago. They weren't working on it really actively. The thing that happened, they were working on it for 8 or 10 years, but their first stuff in Morocco and everything, I think that was before 1900, the stuff they were trying to do. So they were working on this for 20 years. They had a plan, and that was 100 years ago. When now you see them doing computer models, you see them anticipating this stuff decades in advance. You see the Oded Yinon plan. Okay, it took 40 years instead of 10 years. And same thing with Leslie Clark's stuff. It takes, more time, but they're not wavering from their goals. Syria was lost.
Ray Kurzweil.
What?
Ray Kurzweil. It's taking longer than he said too, but it's happening.
Yes. And so people would say, Syria's over. We're done with that. And I'm thinking, we don't get done. That's that's definitely happening. If they want it to happen, they just need to go a different way. But I'm just saying it completely validates that it's the long game. They don't lose. They have
time
the power
preference.
to do it.
Time preference is everything. Yeah,
because they have an intergenerational. They're accepting.
Literally, what I was gonna say. Because, listen, we can all pat ourselves on the back because we buy gold and we don't take on cheap debt, and et cetera, et cetera. We're libertarians, obviously, so we have a low time preference for wealth. But this is the time preference you wouldn't understand. You wouldn't believe, dude.
Right. It takes an entire lifetime to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To look back and say, because I went to Ivy League schools, I met people like this with names on buildings, and I'm thinking, boy, that guy really got ahead of that whole, farm build, land grab or whatever. And I just, you can just see they're taught totally differently.
I bet, yeah. So yeah, you brought up the Morocco thing. That the whole thing was the Germans were in Morocco, and the British just weaseled their way. The French did it. The French parked their ships there to be hey, it seems like the Moroccans. Oh no, it was the British. I'm sorry. There was supposedly 8 British citizens there who got killed in a riot or an anti-European riot or something, which was just fake. And then so we'll just go send our ships down to Morocco then. And then the Germans were like, hey, this is our colony. Could you leave?
Yes.
And
the mythical
no, we have to stay. And therefore it's actually ours now. Go away.
Yeah.
And the purpose of that was for the Strait of Gibraltar, by the way, just for the record. They weren't literally taking away their colony or their people there or whatever, but it was just so the British Navy could occupy just the Strait of Gibraltar and have that strategic position.
Yeah, well,
that was in
Napoleonic Wars,
1907. Sorry.
Yeah.
I thought
it was a long
earlier.
that to your point.
Yeah,
it
didn't start happening until after Queen Victoria died.
Yeah, right. But they did. But again, Germany took it.
So let's talk a minute about King Edward
the Seventh.
King Edward the Seventh. He was like I mentioned before, he was up to his eyeballs in debt, much like King Charles to the Rothschilds. Actually, this was like nowadays you could say to the Rothschilds, and it just seems like you're being a kooky conspiracy guy, but like literally. He was in his debt up to his eyeballs for this guy named Edward Castle, who was like literally in business with the Rothschilds. So, yeah literally. And the
Benjamin Disraeli, Boris Johnson.
Yes, I was surprised that I hadn't. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but the Disraeli thing, I was surprised. I hadn't heard that before.
He liked cooming too much.
Yeah, they all like cooming a lot. But Lloyd George, there you go, the Coomer. I remember the way the book frames it to him, like in the first chapter they had him, and I'm like, I literally said to you, William, in our chat, I said, this Lloyd George guy seems kind of cool, and then you were like, just wait one chapter. And I was like, damn it. But yeah, so he was just like a serial cheater on his wife and would like father many, many people. And it's like, oh, you'd like that to go away, would you? Well, we can take care of that, but also you need to owe us money forever and do whatever we want. And he's
it seems like they picked those guys, Churchill and
sure.
They picked the guys who have proclivities and insatiable appetites and not enough money. You know, another thing that makes you vulnerable, I think, is when you're, and this happens in New York, where you're raised rich and snotty, and then your profligate father loses all the money his father made. So here you are with like not paying the mortgage on your place in the Hamptons,
right?
And it's like existential. You know, it's so humiliating that you'll do anything you can't imagine. It's like Mickey Rourke said once, you don't understand how humiliating it is to shop for your own groceries.
Right.
You know, and you'll do anything. You'd rather die.
Yeah.
Man, what a life.
So I just think that like with Churchill, he's
like a special breed, though. He's like, I mean, the book really does a great job of showing what an asshole he is. Cause like he never missed an opportunity to lie, to make not even him seem more interesting, to make like other shit seem more interesting just cause he's like likes to lie.
Yeah.
And what about his role in the Boer War?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Journalist. Yeah.
And wasn't he shooting guys in the back for not running out of the trenches? And I thought that was his job.
I don't think he was ever in the no, he wasn't. He went over there as a journalist on attachment to W.T. Stead's The Times.
He did something where maybe
might
not
have been one
physically.
of his fibs. He got supposedly he had. This is the story. Supposedly he had been taken as a prisoner of war by the Boers, and he escaped in a daring escape.
Yeah.
And it turns out, no, we have the correspondence that the British Foreign Office actually sent specifically for him. And they said, yep, here you go. And put him on a boat, but supposedly like swam to Madagascar or some shit.
But there was something where he was the guy who made sure it wasn't Gallipoli, but something like that, where
he was in charge of that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
First
okay.
First Lord of the Admiralty, right?
Okay.
William?
Oh,
that's
Gallipoli is a really good.
People.
Let's talk about
great
that
story. Yeah, so Gallipoli, as I said, the big carrot for the Russians to get involved in this plot to destroy the world was to get Constantinople, but their troops got bogged down in like the Caucasus, fighting against the Ottomans.
They had one gun for every 3 guys.
Yeah,
it was never going to happen.
I think they were fighting the Austrians, weren't they, in the Caucasus? That's right, and not doing too well. So the British said, well, how would it be if we took Constantinople, because they were thinking about the Russians at that point were going, look, we're going to get a separate peace. We're out, and the secret leader was like, no. If you do that, there'll never be a Bolshevik revolution, and we can't destroy your country completely. So how would it be if we took Constantinople and just looked after it for you until you finish with the Austrians? Because the Turks wanted an alliance with the British.
Yeah.
But the British just ignored them. They wouldn't even talk to them for this reason. So they
like in the Crimean War, World War Zero, by the way.
Yeah,
they were allies.
Yeah, and so as they are now as well. So, these Turks are a bit duplicitous allies. Well, they know their history, don't they?
Yes, they do.
They know what an alliance means. So the Churchill orchestrated this. They had to get a commander who didn't know anything about it. All the competent commanders refused to take it on because it's impossible, right? To invade to do a amphibious landing in the Dardanelles, impossible, because it was heavily fortified, blah blah blah, and amphibious landings are tricky anyway.
Yeah, especially then.
Yeah, and so nobody who could have done it would do it because they said no, it can't be done, and so they got the political admiral guy
Hamilton
who wanted to say it could be done, so he did. Didn't know what he was doing, made a complete balls up of it. And
they also fucked him too because they didn't give enough water or.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was kind of weirdly intentional.
It was 100% intentional. It was done with the absolute intent of failing, but it had to cost a lot of Allied lives. That's why they brought in all the Commonwealth soldiers to do it.
Right, Anzac.
Anzacs and Indians and stuff, yeah. And so they would literally just sacrifice, because after that convinced Russians, well, they didn't get Constantinople first, but they must have really meant it, because 150,000 guys got killed trying to do it. So obviously they're for real. This time, Britain's not lying.
It's personal.
Yeah.
Because they'd never do that.
But see, a lot of people give me shit for being British because of all this stuff, but you got to understand that being British means that I get it worse than anybody else.
Yeah, you're the cannon fodder.
Yeah.
You don't even get to reap in the spoils.
So every time Britain signs up to any international treaty, it signs up with the most disadvantageous conditions possible for its own citizens.
People, yeah.
Just and they say it's to set an example to others that they should also sign up on those terms, right? But I think a lot of it is just they like shitting on us. They like to fuck us over as much as possible.
I don't think they think about you at all.
Kitchener, or are they? Is it an international thing? Do you think at that point they're so Kitchener was just a snob? So you think it's a snobby thing, or do you think it's the international Jewish bankers that just hate?
No, I just think it's that we're just. I don't think it's international Jewish bankers in this state. I think it's kind of a snobby thing. They think, but it's not proper snobbery, because the when we still had a proper aristocracy, they weren't like that.
They sell you out for the people of color and stuff, which is worse in a snob way.
For instance, I got involved in an international legal dispute at some point. I won't go into it, and it was enabled by this treaty that the British government and many other governments had signed on to, and I was getting some shit from overseas, and the way Britain had signed up to this treaty was that the guy who's giving me shit from overseas gets all his travel, his legal expenses, court fees, everything paid for by the British government because he's a foreigner. But the way the foreign government was signed up to it was, yeah, sure, we're signed up to it, but we're not paying anybody's fees.
So this guy is being bankrolled to sue
Fuck me.
Fuck you.
Yeah. All you got to do is show up and tell a story in the right foreign country, and you can fuck over any English guy you want.
Well, you can't let a citizenry get independently wealthy. Like Bismarck told the Kaiser that. I feel like, look at Ron Paul, whatever you think of him, he had enough money to quit his job and go to Washington, and that can't happen.
Yeah.
Progressive taxation, which is what keeps us,
social mobility is like that's like something that's not on the agenda, because then they have to work harder to keep people like us out of the realms of power. And by the way, it's sickening to see people like sell this lie that it's like all we got to do is like post racist stuff online and like Elon Musk will do what we want. It's like you're an idiot or you're a liar. That you're a liar is what you are.
Trump's wives are immigrants. His children are Jewish.
They're all,
I don't understand why what alignment they think they have with these guys, that they're willing to spend their fortunes and their time and take tremendous risks, like to come out and be on the front edge of totally racist, illegal shit. That's just a risk that people who run 5 giant companies, they don't get there if they take those kind of risks. They don't break SEC rules and hope for the best. Like, that's just not how it works.
Well, they break SEC rules, but they know that they are in the like the guys who check the SEC rules are in their pockets.
No, that's what I'm saying is that it's obviously not what you see is what you get. That's obvious. It can't be. The world doesn't work that way.
And I'm not blackpilling, by the way.
No,
you got to be realistic.
I'll tell you what, how I've come to terms with it all is that I was at one of the Telegram chats. I mean, I don't go on it much anymore, but like it had a little poll. What political ideology are you? And I couldn't say I was any of them, because I think you really you got to be a Christian first, and then just let the rest of it take care of itself.
I agree with that. And it's a post-ideological thing. The ideological stuff is just a way to keep your wheels turning. Yeah. This isn't ideological. It's not like one of them is wants to implement fascist principles and the other wants to implement socialist principles. I mean, it's fascist, yes, just de facto, because it's privatizing public money and all that. But there's no ideology. It's not like a bunch of people are trying to figure out what's the best way to govern and then implementing that. We're voting for the guy who's really trying on the one side, or the guy's really trying on the other. It's just completely.
Yeah, I think so at the top level, there might be a thing of that, but it's like which mode of government? Let's allow these different ideologies and modes of government to compete with each other to see which one makes most money for us, the banks.
Oh yeah, but it all ends up in the same place.
Yeah. So it's I came up with a little slogan, didn't I, a few years ago, which is everything is trading places. So like the Cold War was just trading places. It's like, you know.
Do you guys think that the American
Kuhn Loeb had to pay Lehman Brothers $1 because the Soviet Union collapsed? You won.
Yeah, you were right and I was wrong, Rupert. Now let's move on and let's bet on something else. Let's see if the QAnon guys or the trannies win.
Yes, good point.
But yeah, so Gallipoli, that was horrible. They literally let how many? What's the figure, William?
I think it's
10,000, right?
No, it's more than that.
Oh,
yeah,
50,000. Yeah, just Australian guys. Going, I have nothing to drink.
I wish I brought some shoes.
I'm really thirsty. And it's actually fucked up because they all died of dysentery. The other thing was, it's like petty almost, because if I recall, one of the details was like they wanted to have a break just to take a shit. And they're like, no, you got to stay on the boat for 12 more hours before we get there. And so when they hit the beaches, they were all like, I have to shit like right now. Like, so they all just get blown apart by artillery, just because they have to squat and take a shit before on the beach. By the way, speaking of, there must have been a lot of Indians there that day. Yeah.
But Can I tell you this? It says more than 130,000 men died. At least 87,000 Ottoman soldiers and 44,000 Allied soldiers. That doesn't sound right at all.
Yeah, it seems like a
At
rose-colored glasses.
Because like most of the Allied soldiers died of dysentery.
Yeah,
and the Ottomans were just in forts pinning them down with machine gun fire while they sat and died of thirst.
Yeah. That was like the only thing the Ottomans did that didn't like get their asses kicked too.
Yeah, I was surprised they lost hardly anybody.
They were getting their asses kicked by the Russians in the north.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot of disinfo here.
Yeah, it's the thing with it, because World War I is such a foundational event. But like the sort of mainstream view of it is, well, nobody really knows what happened. Doesn't really make sense. Yeah, I'll grant you, the World War I doesn't really make sense, but it does make sense.
Yeah, if you look at it through the right lens. Yeah.
Tell you this crazy thing that happened. I was online. I was at a Weight Watchers meeting, and it was in the Veteran of Foreign Wars hall. So there were all these antique posters on the wall from like 1917. It's like, the angel lady holding a soldier and buy bonds and whatever. And I was just standing behind.
If I were a man, I'd join the Navy. I got that downstairs framed.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So stuff like that. So there was just some person I didn't know in front of me. And I said, can you believe this fucking ridiculous shit about, whatever? And she looks at me and says, I said, Germany fucking what? And she said, they were monsters.
Yeah.
I mean, this is,
Babies on bayonets.
100 years later. And I said, why? Why? What do you mean? They were just monsters. They were monsters.
Yeah.
I guess that's enough. That's your PD Wodehouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. They made lamps and lampshades and soap out of people.
But it was World War I.
I know, but that facts don't matter to people.
I know, but it's
that never even happened in World War II. That was a fake thing. They admitted it was fake later.
And they didn't. Yeah, World War I made no sense.
Well, it makes perfect sense, like we said.
But to us, like how they did it.
Yeah, and what did it have to do with the United States?
Well, the Zimmerman thing.
Yeah, that's a funny one.
The Zimmerman thing. So, do you think Zimmerman was a secret agent because he was like, "Oh yeah, I wrote that ridiculous thing"?
I absolutely do. Yeah.
What's the Zimmerman thing?
The Zimmerman telegram.
Yeah.
That guy was absolutely. By the way, Zimmerman. Let's just say Robert Zimmerman is the same religion as this guy. But I just definitely think that the fact that he claimed credit for something that was just fake it begs belief. So there's this.
And by the way, even if he did it, that doesn't implicate the German government. It's the Kaiser who would have to own it.
Yeah,
sure. And then worse, if you recall the actual. So okay, well, let's talk about what we're talking about. The Zimmerman telegram is a telegram that was sent from the German delegation. I don't know exactly who. Supposedly, this guy named Zimmerman to the German what do you call that? Like ambassador of Mexico. And in this telegram, basically, it was like, hey, Mexico, we're friends, right? If America gets into this war against us, which it seems like they might, we will, if you ally with us, we will help you get back several states of territory.
Arizona, and I think California. I mean, it's absolutely preposterous. And it says we'll send you a lot of money and you can set your own terms. It's the silliest thing. Oh, and that maybe the U.S. will back off joining the war when they realize how brutal our submarine warfare is going to be. Like ruthless. I mean, that's not the Germans' position was not, we are about to launch a ruthless war on you.
No.
Right. So they intercept this telegram. Actually, the Americans did not intercept this telegram. It was the British Foreign Office who had intercepted. I think it's Unit 40 was the name of the group or whatever, but it was absolutely Milner guys. And by the way, they made efforts.
Excuse me a moment. I'm just intercepting my shopping list.
Good point. But then the best thing is they actually went out of their way to conceal this fact that it was the English who had intercepted this.
And they sent it on a U.S. cable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they were trying to get the U.S. to accidentally, sends it to Mexico.
I know.
A German-Mexican alliance to restore California to Mexico. That was that's
the best
Germany
part is like
time for
imagining the Mexicans like having like winning against the American military even there. Like it's like just come on, guys.
Because the Germans are coming over and helping them.
Yeah, right. They were losing their war.
That's what I'm saying. How many Germans could you honestly expect to invade the United States in the 1900s? Not the 1800s, but the 1900s.
Yeah.
Texas, Arizona.
So this is the thing that begs belief is that so the American delegation, I don't know exactly who the people involved are here, go, hey, Germany, Mr. Zimmerman, what is the deal with this telegram? And then Zimmerman goes like, yeah, that was me, and I absolutely meant every word of it.
But here's the thing, and the guy rightly says, the authors rightly say this was not a pretext for war. But like on the face, you might think, well, why not? But again, like he wasn't empowered.
Yeah,
that was an act of war.
That. Yeah.
He wasn't empowered to do that. So even if he owned it, that shouldn't have been enough.
Well, I think it was more that it played to the newspapers to be like the Americans were like, oh, look at these bastard Germans. I can't believe them.
Propaganda. It just doesn't, it's so, I'm saying it's so obviously propaganda. It's purely propaganda.
Absolutely.
Well, it's like the propaganda. I mean, this contradictory propaganda. Like there's a whole thing of, the British blockaded Germany in World War One to starve them of arms and food. Right. Okay, that didn't happen. But also, the Germans were providing the Irish nationalists with weapons and support.
Yep.
But what about the blockade? They can't get weapons into neutral country ports, but they can get weapons from their ports to Ireland. How? Never mind that.
That don't make no sense.
But there's loads of stuff like that about Putin, isn't there? Oh, it's all Russian bots. It's these Russian.
Oh, Russia blew up the bridge.
Yeah.
Russia blew up the pipeline.
Its own pipeline.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't even make sense on any.
That same guy I was talking about before who said that thing about the plebiscite, he actually was saying that. And then afterwards, after they said, oh, it was actually the Americans, he goes, those badass Ukrainians did such a great job blowing that stupid pipeline up. It's no problem for him to be like, go from one thing to the other. Like,
but why does he care?
I'm telling you, dude, pussy is a major like motivator for like. Right.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I can't. That doesn't. I have no lobe for that in my head.
Obviously not. Yeah. Yeah, a girl responded to his DMs for a few. I'm assuming, by the way.
And why does she fucking care?
I don't know. I don't know. I know.
I'm not saying her. I'm not saying specifically. I just don't understand why I'm at church, my Catholic church, the like yucky liberal one, and where they're playing guitars, and on the back of the music stand is a Ukrainian flag.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there hating in church at stupid people who are advocating murder with like flowers in their hair. I just, I can't stand it. I can't understand it. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah, I don't get it.
It's very sad. I get it.
But what has anybody read that J.D. Vance speech that he gave in Munich? It's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Was it good? I didn't read it.
Obviously, he didn't mention anything about Israel, but
Catholic.
He was. Oh, yes, I did. I didn't read it in full, but yeah, the gist of it was basically like you guys are running your economies into the ground to like help this thing that sucks.
Yeah.
And what sucks? The Ukraine war?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they have to give you some red meat. They have to give you Ross Ulbricht.
Yeah. Broken gay Indian wife's clock is right once a day.
Super bums me out that they're converting to Catholicism, these people, to
oh yeah. Well, Peter Thiel was a student of Gerard, so
well, okay.
Are you just saying Gerard's Catholic or
Gerard was Catholic? Yeah. So I think
I know, but they're not really Catholic. They're using it.
Yeah, they're wearing like a skin suit.
It's upsetting. Yeah. Plus they'll fuck it up like Opus Dei. It fucks it up.
This is one my favourite bit from that speech. I was struck that a former European commissioner went on television recently and sounded delighted that the Romanian government had just annulled an entire election. He warns that if things don't go to plan, the same thing could happen in Germany too. Now, these cavalier statements are shocking to American ears. For years, we've been told that everything we fund and support is in the name of our shared democratic values. Everything from our Ukraine policy to digital censorship is billed as a defense of democracy. But when we see European courts cancelling elections and senior officials threatening to cancel others, we ought to ask whether we're holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard. And I say ourselves, because I fundamentally believe we're on the same team. We must do more than talk about democratic values. We must live them. Now, within living memory, many of you in this room, the Cold War positioned defenders of democracy against much more tyrannical forces on this continent. And consider the side of the fight that censored dissidents, that closed churches, that cancelled elections. Were they the good guys? Certainly not. And thank God, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he's like...
That's Vance, because all the shit he's talking about, they are implementing here.
Yeah.
Digital censorship, that is what they're doing here. And of course, it's,
Well, Monica, you see, they got the center-right Zionist party in here now, and they're trying to get the center-right Zionist party in Germany next. So they have to make sure that the libtards don't ruin that for them.
Yeah.
Well, but they're selling the exact opposite, which is my contrary law of democracy anyway. Like, you can only implement the opposite of what your constituency wants, because the other side can't get that.
Labor conservative,
100%.
But yeah, so okay, we got a couple more things I want to hit. We got to do Herbert Hoover. That's the big one. I think that's pretty much what we got to stick with for the rest. That's like the biggest thing too, by the way.
And his reputation as the president who kind of let 1929 happen, and he fucked up by not being most interventionist. And my father used to say, like, he was super interventionist. He did all that stuff, but the
Hoover Dam isn't named after the vacuum cleaner, is it?
And good point. And the alternative narrative for him is that
he sure did suck.
Nice. The alternative narrative is that he was a milquetoast. So the alternative narrative is that he was a do-nothing. But meanwhile, he was a huge slime ball, and they buried all the two things as he did what we're going to talk about. By
Alex Jones's worst nightmare. He hid the documents.
Yeah, he hid the so then he buried all the World War, not just his own, but the Hoover Institute, the Hoover Library, which I always wondered why Stanford had
the Hoover Institute,
Republican, And anyway, so it's all that stuff's buried in there. I wonder when they're gonna light a match.
Yeah, the Hoover Institute, by the way, that William, I talked about a book. Called what the hell? Culture Against Man. And it was pretty interesting, by the way, but it was like basically check out our episode on it. It's pretty interesting. But it was funded by the Hoover Institute. And I'm like, who the Hoover Institute? Like, who is that? And now I know. I see the whole point of it now.
There's another book, Backdoor to War, about all the State Department documents that prove that basically FDR played solitaire while Honolulu burned or whatever, Pearl Harbor burned. And it was published in the 50s. It has all my father's marginalia from when he came back from the Navy in the Pacific Theater, and his was immediately disillusioned. But it was published by the Regnery Press, Regnery, Regnery, which is supposedly, it's supposed like it has all this alt stuff, maybe even like almost John Birchie stuff, but I think it's a CIA front. So I'm like, okay, the CIA is putting out the information in the 50s.
Yeah, well, this is a really, like, how Kitchener gets assassinated, then gets to be the bad guy after he's dead.
Yeah.
Ditto Hoover, who everyone shits on Hoover.
True.
But not because
for the wrong reasons.
So they don't feel the need to look into the guy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's got a reputation already. Why you knew? I already got I got the thumbnail sketch of this guy already. Right. Why look further?
Yeah. Because basically,
interesting. I understand. Yeah, wow.
He was like a scammer. He was he was one of the
Rothschild's agent in China first.
Yeah,
Hoover.
He was
Hoover.
tight.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And he was tight with Milner because he provided Chinese slaves for South African mines.
Right.
Right. So he was involved in the Boer War as well, providing
The
slave
Road and
labor.
Belt Initiative.
Yeah.
Get it?
And then he ran this this op in Belgium, which was creating false propaganda about German atrocities, babies on bayonets, starvation, which wasn't happening.
Yeah.
And so you've got to give. We're Americans. We're neutral. Belgium's also a neutral country. We've got to give money and food, dude. So, and we brought over money, bought arms with it, food, diverted a lot of food to the Germans, like literally offloaded it in Amsterdam and sent it up the rivers to Germany.
Yeah. So
like,
basically what happened was...
And then hid all the documents in the Hoover Library.
Right. So Hoover became the face of this
and all the art as well. You know, like how the Nazis stole all the art?
Yeah.
Well, Hoover stole all the art first.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
I missed that.
Yeah. Hoover was like the face of this, and it was basically like a Schiff-Kuhn Loeb operation. Actually, was like and JP Morgan, Schiff-Kuhn Loeb were sort of like and this is the really evil thing about it. So they pitched this to America, like, hey, the Belgians, we're neutral, they're neutral. And by the way, the first book does plenty of information to show how they were not neutral at all. So we got to support other neutral countries. So let's all donate money and food to the Belgian people, and Herbert Hoover will be the administrator of this. But when they got there, they created a bank with the money that they sent over, and they actually sold the food to the Belgians, which then made it so that the food that was not gone, again, there's this myth that the food was all gone in Belgium. That's why we need to send food. So what happens is they got maybe not shitty, but they got food that was produced in America, meaning, by the way, this is corporate welfare, companies producing food. And then they bring all the food to Belgium and sell it at a profit to the Belgians. And then that frees up all the food production in Belgium to then give to Germany. And then, by the way, also some of the food that came from America went to Germany, by the way. And they made a tidy profit on it. And then best of all, the whole time they're supporting Germany's war effort, or keeping them in the war, basically. And the best part is what we were just talking about before, William, is that Schiff-Kuhn Loeb possibly, you can take it whichever way you want. You could see how this entire thing was a dupe on them. I don't think so necessarily, but I'm open to the idea is that they were going like, yeah, we're going to help Germany. This is the whole first half of the war. And we're going to we like the Germans. The Germans were never bad to us. So, and then, the whole time it was everybody got their beak wet, though. That's the beauty of it. Is Herbert Hoover got his beak wet. He took home $2 million in then money. And by the way, we can look this up on the debt calculator if we want, because it goes back that far. But $2 million in then money to do what? To be charitable? That sounds pretty good. Sounds like BLM take home money. Remember how much money those guys got?
Well, Hoover did way better than that. $2 million in 1914 money. I mean, it's
billions.
It's billions.
No, it's not billions.
Let's check it out. I'll go on the debt calculator.
It doubles 4 times, or maybe 6 times. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 100 million. The most.
Right.
But it's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's a lot. It's a Learjet and serial trophy wives.
Russian
I think he also like took a paycheck too. This was just at the end. He was like, this cost me a lot of money.
So you think you're not sure, you're open to the idea that, so Prolonging the Agony is based on the title, means like they prolong the war on purpose by keeping Germany afloat. And I would say the evidence of that is that Germany was in worse shape. 50 million, yeah. So Germany was in worse shape after the war. So that means that they were dependent on some kind of support that went away. And you're saying definitely Hoover or definitely like the British were intentionally prolonging the agony. That's why they were keeping Germany afloat. But these other guys might have been either supporting Germany or playing both sides, or is that a
Playing both sides is good. I think that's fair because I primarily, I don't think anyone would argue with me on this point, is that the point of Schiff Kuhn Loeb was to make money.
Yeah, I mean, it does the whole like. I think it's a bit of a cop out to say that international Jewish conspiracy is at the bottom of everything. The fact is that these bankers are going to get involved in everything.
Yes.
So whatever wins, they're going to be on both sides of everything.
They like winners.
So it's not like for instance, the bankers were not Zionists until
specifically Jacob Schiff was not.
Yeah, but until it became a fait accompli, and then they're like, okay, well, now we're Zionists, I guess, because that's the way it is. It's just like they're going to make. The only time it's not that is when it's against Russia.
Yeah, they hate Russia. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, specifically in that Money Kings book, by the way, Monica, check it out. It's great. But Jacob Schiff's Jacob Schiff's whole thing was like, no, we're crushing it in America. Why would all Jews should come to America so we can run this fucking place?
And they did.
Yeah, kind of did, yeah. But the point is that they were like, no, why would we go to the middle of the desert where there's no resources and also you're trying to make a prophecy come true that isn't part of my sect of Orthodox Judaism or whatever. And by the way, you'll notice that in Israel, the country now, the people who are like the most religious, like the religious zealots in Israel, are the ones from these kooky sects who literally think that they're trying to bring end times so they could have 1,000 goy slaves each. Literally, that's what their theology is. And I'm not being just anti-Semitic at all. That is literally the Chabad guys.
Not just anti-Semitic.
Yeah. But the Chabad guys literally think that Yahweh is a space alien that's going to return and give them 1,000 goy slaves each. That
sounds a little Mormon-y.
It is. It's very more. It came around the same time period as the Mormons.
Well, I'm sure it has its uses. But this book, Lawrence in Arabia by Scott Anderson, which is like a New York Times, but you know whatever, it was on the table when you walk into Barnes and Noble. The footnote, like the sources are really, really interesting. A lot of primary sources from back in the day.
Sure.
And it's I think it was really accurate. But one of the things he brings out is that the European Jews felt that the establishment of a state of Israel, or Zionism, was an anti-Semitic plot because they had spent hundreds of years trying to say, no, I'm French, really.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out that way. And he goes into like some of the made up stuff that they said were atrocities against Jews living in the Holy Land when there weren't.
Yeah.
It's very
That's in this book too. Yeah. The other thing to that exact point, Monica, I just read the book, The Jewish World of Alexander Hamilton. Recommend that wholeheartedly, by the way. And one of the major things that are in the book is that it just went through your hit list of all the founding fathers to be like, what was their opinion on Jews? And you'll find that a lot of them had this vaguely anti-Semitic take where they were like, we need to create Israel because if we do that, the end times will come and then the Jews will become Christians because Jesus will come back. So that is like,
but they didn't become Christians last time, did they?
Listen, I find fault in their logic.
Yeah, they wouldn't believe it if it did happen.
And once the Jewish Messiah came, the Christians are the Jews. So like any prophecy that applies to the...
I've got news for you, Monica. The Jewish Messiah has been.
Yeah, he came.
No,
I
know. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. They didn't... If you don't recognize it, I think you forfeit the legacy.
Yeah, but this is the double speak that you...
Right, I mean, like, the evangelicals.
We watched a lot of YouTube videos in our Bible study of this English evangelical dude who's really
Oh, he's great.
He's a really good lecturer, but he's really into this.
Yeah.
Well, of course,
What?
It's dispensationalism.
but it's this like ridiculous taking like because the whole point of the
What's
Messiah.
that guy's name again?
Like, is it Paulson?
Yes, yeah, it is Paulson. Yeah.
But like they rejected Christ. The Jews of their time, Jesus' ministry was to Jews, and the early Christians had been Jews. They were Jews. That's the fulfillment of the prophecy, whatever.
Right.
Right. The ones who didn't,
Pharisees.
They're not just like not recognizing it. They're saying no, it's fake.
Yeah.
And so like say, oh yeah, they're part of our the remnant of Jews are part of our religious faith. It's not true.
They're schismatics.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you as a Christian evangelicals,
that has to be your position as a Christian. Like, it's not a controversial thing. It's like, you think you're right. Obviously, I think I'm right. And my way means this, and your way means that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, to your exact point there, Monica, when evangelicals go, those who are good to Israel, or those who bless Israel will be blessed, and shit like that. I literally just watched a video of this dumbass on TikTok being like, I don't care how many of you people call me a cuck. I support the state of Israel. It was very funny, honestly. But
should put that on the soundboard.
I actually should, yeah. But what's it called? But then he says shit like that. Like he says, like he tries to go, if you believe in the Bible, then you believe that the Jews belong in Israel. And it's like, dude, if you believe in the Bible, we are Israel.
They do, but
we're Israel if you believe in the Bible.
Right.
You didn't read it right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
I think there's got to be some conspiracy behind this Schofield Bible thing, because I remember thinking during COVID that these guys, like the Israel, ordinary Jewish guys in America and evangelicals and the citizens of Israel are the most psyoped and misused people on earth. They're the victims shields of this as much as anybody else. Yeah,
human shields. They're walking human shields. Yeah,
and there's something behind this sudden development of dispensationalism. What 150 years ago, or something. What brought that about? What were the forces behind that movement? It'd be interesting to look into that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's definitely an episode. Yeah, actually, JB had expressed interest in doing that as a topic at some point, but he moved, so I had to put it off. But we'll be doing it. We'll get him back. Yeah, so Herbert Hoover, that is so crazy. I didn't know much about him besides the like not taking the bait for government spending. He's like a libertarian hero for having not pumped money into the first depression. But I didn't think much more of him.
He did, though.
I know he did. In retrospect, yeah,
he's no Harding.
Yeah. Oh, right. He was the guy who really didn't. Yeah.
Harding really didn't, and they killed him for it. And then Coolidge didn't again. I have to make this funny. Those are the two biggest landslides in presidential history, and they happened immediately after women got the vote. I'm not defending women. I'm not saying anything at all. I'm not even defending voting, but I just think that's funny because they're the two basest ones too.
Yeah.
Well, like women.
Shouts out women. Shouts out women.
Well, it's probably because women were
influenced
by men. Yeah, they were family women. They were still
women in their natural state. That it's like
are conservative. Yeah,
the right wing, and so are young children. I mean, you know this. Like, there's nobody more conservative than a 3-year-old girl. They don't want anything.
You take their shit. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not. They don't approve of. They don't like to see kissing on TV or
yes.
Anything like that. It's like,
and they don't want you to take their shit.
No, exactly.
They will scream bloody murder if you come anywhere near their little lollipops or whatever. Taking candy from a baby is not as easy as it sounds.
True that.
Yeah, that is
True
true.
that.
It's like taking candy from a baby. A real pain in the ass.
You're
It's
gonna
like
get
taking
bit.
smoked salmon from a baby.
There you go.
Okay. So we got Herbert Hoover, pretty crazy. And then also oh yeah, the Russian Revolution. This was news to me. And I knew a little bit about this, of course. But what was that guy's name? Was his name Salis or something? Or Parvis? Parvis was the name of the guy. He was like Trotsky and Lenin's bosom buddy. And he and Trotsky had escaped the Gulag together. And by the way, Trotsky went to America where he was cushed up. He hung out with his relatives in the Bronx and refused to tip. By the way, did you guys see that meme going around? He refused to tip because tipping is bourgeois. Nice fucking mental gymnastics, Trotsky shouts out. What's it called? But this other guy, Parvis, he went to. This is so amazing. I love this. So he left the Gulag and then went to the Ottoman Empire, which, as you know, is the original Zionist occupied government. And what's it called? And he became like a textiles merchant of sorts. But the book cuts straight the bullshit, and they go, oh yeah, the Rothschilds gave him a shitload of money, and he became a promoter of leftism the world over. Basically, he was the one giving cash to Lenin. He was the one giving cash to Trotsky in America. He was doling out cash to Trotsky in the Bronx. And by the way, there's something worth noting here is that even Karl Marx was consistently getting rich guys to give him money. It's like the whole communism thing is fake. Like nobody believes this unless they're cushed out with free money. Like,
Did you ever see the cartoon, the like one square cartoon from whatever, probably the 19th century, where it shows Karl Marx in the middle and all the bankers with like money?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. And it's true. I mean, literally, I didn't realize that there's a face you could. Literally, there's this. I play this video game called Tropico, which is like it's like a strategy game where you play as the dictator of like a South American colony or something, and you play from like the colonial era all the way to the modern era. And there's a part in the middle where you get it's called the Cold War era in it, and there's like these shady billionaire guys with like they show a picture of him and he's shrouded in darkness and he's got a cigar and a thing of caviar and he gives you money if you switch to communism. And I'm like, what are they talking about? Who is this guy? And then I read this book and they're talking about this Parvis guy. I'm like, this is it.
Wow.
This is a real guy. They put this in a fucking video game.
That's amazing. Who made that video game?
Just some guy.
That's funny.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. Check it out. Actually, don't. You probably wouldn't like it. It's very autistic.
Munch's Odyssey. I had to play that for 72 hours straight, and then I never played another video game. I didn't take a shower. I didn't eat. I was like, fuck it.
No, Tropico is like for the
kids.
To our autistic viewers of the show and listeners of the show. It is a management game where you have to decide how many dollars go to the budget of each building in your city. So it's one of those type of things. But I do recommend it. But so when I read about this Parvis guy, I'm like, oh my God, this is it. Like this is the guy that they never say his name. This is the only book, well, probably not the only book, but it's one of the only books you're going to hear about this guy because this guy's existence flies in the face of of the entire tradition of leftism.
Yeah.
Because he's some rich guy who got kitted out by the Rothschilds in order to spread leftism artificially around the world.
It's like Ukraine flags.
Yeah. And then the other hand, what are you talking about? Some commie guy? That you can't talk about that in conservative or right-wing discourse. I mean, I guess you could if you're going down the rabbit hole we are, of course, but it's like not something that would just come up. So when I'm reading about this guy, I'm like, wow, how did I never hear that? How did it get to take till 5 years into this podcast for me to even hear this guy's name? Yeah.
No, it's, well, like I say, it's trading places, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
It's like
it was like the other guy that, was that was that the Turk who like had his own super rich guy who had his own material, his own?
Yeah, he was
history
Russian
destroyed?
Jewish, but yeah,
That
but
was
he was
part
living
of
in
this?
Turkey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he
okay,
got
yeah. So it was intentional, highly intentional to be
Yeah.
wiped from the pages of history.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's like so the Trotsky sect is still in power in the United States as well.
Literally, yeah, I know.
Crazy.
The Mensheviks ended up taking
That's
over
the
the way they said
Irving
they
Kristol,
would too,
yeah.
democratically. Yeah, Irving Kristol, right. But I will say
unapologetically.
Yeah, pretty openly.
He was unapologetic when he was talked about like how it was a natural progression for him to be a neoconservative, which he invented as a neo-Trotskyite.
I just read a thing from Frank Wright yesterday. It says that they've created a world. He's talking about Jordan Peterson. He doesn't like Jordan Peterson. It's like he's like campaigning for a world where everywhere's the same, and the only value is shopping.
Yeah, are we interviewing that guy?
We're getting there.
Well, so Radio Tease next month we will be conversing with that guy to talk about Jordan Peterson. I surmise.
we better do the traffic report and get out of here. I got to get ready for work now.
Sure. Is there anything else we want to hit before we get out of here? Do we miss anything?
Probably. I mean, it is two really long books. I'd say read these books.
Yes,
Monica alluded to it earlier. They are presented in the best of all the non-fiction books I've read. They're quite fact dense, but they're easy to read.
Yeah,
because they've got fairly short chapters, which are well titled. So if you want to go back and find a factoid, you can just easily see where it's going to be from the chapter. And then at the end of every chapter, there's a summary of it, just like bullet points. And so it's really easy to read, and it's great to go back to. They're well worth buying.
Agree. Oh, one thing.
That's high praise since you guys say don't buy the book.
Yeah.
God always says don't buy the book.
I'm claiming a lot of books on my taxes this year. Chill. But what is this? The one thing I alluded to before we started the show to you guys was that we sort of glanced over it, but now I'll just quickly talk about it. The Belgian dynasty there, the ones who are still in power today, I should mention, they were instrumental in like getting in bed with Lord Grey and all these guys to make these secret alliances and stuff, and that they would only join, or they would only be neutral with the assurances that they would be able to rule in exile, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, the thing that I kept thinking of the entire time I'm reading about all this intrigue with the royals in Belgium is Aya the Chicken Hawk, which William, you did not read, but I read for the show in your absence.
Someone's been telling me to read it.
I might have been me actually, but Aya the Chicken Hawk. Mark.
It was Jack.
Oh yeah, I told him about it. Yes, but what's it called? So Mark Dutroux, that whole Mark Dutroux thing, and that's the tip of the Mark Dutroux is the tip of the iceberg. But there's so much revelation from that investigation where like apparently like there were child trafficked victims who were saying that the royal family in Belgium, they have like parties where they hunt kids in
oh yes, human hunting parties. Did you ever see that video of the woman? It was the most believable thing I ever saw. It absolutely happens to be true. She was a child who was
that's what I'm talking about.
She was crying. She was in the international court. Have you seen that video of her?
Well, I read the transcript in the book.
There's no denying that was true. I'm going to send you the video, although you have to like Google sex trade.
Well, it's in the book too, like I said.
Human hunting part, but watching it is amazing. Anyway.
Yeah, and so there's so much paperwork on this. Like this girl was like, my grandmother was like a madam for like these rich people in the Belgian courts and stuff, and I was raised to be like a prostitute basically from childhood, and they got all my friends from school to be part of it and everything. And like, the prince and the king are all like, that's them. Like, you know what I mean? And then, I think in Program to
Cardinals
Kill
are there. And
Oh yeah. And I think we talked in Program to Kill, it's mentioned a little bit, but you know, that whole thing ended up in a cover up where they let him out and stuff. And he was like literally writing letters to the newspaper being like, ha ha ha, ha I'm out. I'm still killing kids, you know, stuff like that. So bad. But yeah, so when I don't have much more to say about it other than when I read that the Belgians were in league with these guys, I go, yep, that makes sense. So yeah, check that book out, I guess, if you're interested in
I know.
being very
I just bought.
depressed,
I have resisted the urge to buy it every time. Like I'll go to buy it because you'll say, and then I'll read the blurb and I'll be like, I don't want that fucking thing.
Yeah, it's not a fun read.
I bought it just for the record.
I read it twice, unfortunately.
All right, you know what? That's a little weird.
I had to do the episode on it. What do you want me to say?
Okay, all right. Yeah. That's fine. That's fine. Explanation.
Yeah. Okay, but let's get out of here. Monica, anything you want to promote to the peeps before we get out of here?
No, I don't know. My show
Monica
is Monica Perez Show, and I've been reading. I haven't been doing a lot of like news, which is probably for the better these
good for
days.
You. Get away from
but
it.
I'm reading. I have a couple of books that I read in, and then we do comments and stuff like that. It's very fun listening. Saturday story time, and the one I've completed is Mass Control. It's a Jim Keith book, really great. Totally documents all the stuff that's kind of before MK Ultra, all the experimentation and stuff. And it's very well documented.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Yeah.
And then right now I'm reading Makers of the Modern Mind. So it was written in the 50s. So it's not the postmodern mind. I really want to talk to you guys about this one. It's 12 guys who brought us from 1500 to 1950, basically. Luther, Calvin, Descartes, Locke, blah, blah, blah. And it ends up with Dewey, Freud, Marx. It's very interesting. But the reason I want you guys' opinion is because I think you understand what is meant by modern. And I'm not sure I fully understand that. So I think I have a pre-modern mind, honestly. And I think we're now in the stage of postmodern. But it's just hard for me to understand what gap he's bridging because I have no truly defined conception of the modern mind. Anyway, that's all at the Monica Perez Show, wherever.
Right.
Awesome. And for us, www.historyhomos.com. And you can find us, that's for the RSS feed. We're also available on iTunes. We've been putting stuff up on YouTube, and I purposely did not put the Jewish World of Alexander Hamilton episode up, by the way. But I have been putting this episode will go up and on YouTube, and then, Spotify, iTunes, BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, Rokfin, and most importantly, please subscribe to us at Substack, historyhomospod.substack.com. If you like the episode, you get 100% more show for just $5 a month. 4 bonus episodes a week, and typically with me and my sidekick.
4 bonus episodes a week?
A month, sorry. Thank you for correcting me. 4 bonus episodes a month, once a week. And we do, the same sort of stuff we talk about. It's a real episode. It's not just us going like literally when we click off, I'm not going to go, okay, time to do the bonus content. No, it's a taped a whole nother day of the week. This week we did a full 2-hour-long analysis of Akira, the 1988 cyberpunk anime classic. And so we do real stuff every week. And so please go help us out. Historyhomospod.substack.com. And yeah, so follow us across social media at HistoryHomosPod. You can join our Telegram group at time of recording. Still the friendliest place on the internet. t.me/HistoryHomos is the channel. t.me/HistoryHomos chat is the chat. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please do not hesitate to email me at historyhomospod@gmail.com. I respond to everybody. And if you also are looking for a History Homos t-shirt, it's here somewhere. I lost it. But it's got Uncle Ted on it, and you can buy that through that. Just send me your size and address, and we'll figure out the rest. Die with dignity. William, what would you like to sign off with for this month?
I don't know. Long live, living long.
Amen. Later, homos.
Cecil rose with a gleam in his eye, started a game that I couldn't deny. In the smoky rooms where the shadows play, I caught the echoes of their silent sway. It's a worldwide conspiracy behind closed doors. Bankers and politicians, their insatiable cause. With every card dealt, they laugh and conspire, building an empire on the flames of desire. Enormous secrets, they danced in my mind, while Churchill and Gray left the truth behind. They carved out a war with a flick of a pen, as innocent lives fell like rain, again and again. I learned of their power, it burned like a fire in a game so twisted, the stakes were higher. It's a worldwide conspiracy behind closed doors. Bankers and politicians, their insatiable course. With every card dealt, they'd laugh and conspire, building an empire on the flames of desire. Hoover's ambition, Lloyd George's schemes, every headline hiding their fevered dreams. As the world burned bright, they played their hand in a chessboard of nations. They made their stand. I remember the stories whispered at night, how cold hearts thrived in the shadows of fright. The men in fine suits with their confident smiles, dancing on graves, walking endless miles. It's a worldwide conspiracy behind closed doors. Bankers and politicians, their insatiable course. With every card dealt, they laugh and conspire, building an empire on the flames of desire. Now see the pieces, the world has changed, but the games they play still feel so deranged. From the ashes we rise, through the smoke and the tears, we'll unravel their tales and confront all our fears. Yeah, oh, worldwide conspiracy, it's time to break free. Let's shine a light on their dark history.